Friday, December 19th through Monday, December 22nd is really something astrologically. First, we have this dreamy, expansive Sagittarius new moon, which is squaring Neptune in Pisces. And then the sun moves into Capricorn, and we have our winter solstice, the darkest, longest night of the year. These signatures sort of fold and unfold into each other, painting an interesting astrological picture. Plus, Chiron in Aries is squaring Jupiter in Cancer. This adds to the astrological signature of this time in an important way. I'm excited to talk about all of it with you today. I actually didn't talk about the Jupiter part of this signature in my horoscopes, but I did talk about this new moon and the Neptune square and the Capricorn ingress. But adding in this Jupiter Chiron square is sort of another level if you have already watched those horoscopes. All right, so let me just put this on the channel. Unfortunately, my stylus broke. A new one is on the way. I thought it would be here in time for this recording, but it is not. So I'll have that by next time for sure. Okay, so here's our new moon in Sagittarius. In this, I always relegate for Aries in the first house just to keep it easy for those of you that are learning astrology and enjoy following along on that aspect of these reports. If you just like listening to the astrology, I hope these reports work for you as well. Okay, so we have the sun and the moon. When the moon catches up with the sun, we'll have our new moon. And at that time, we're going to have this square over to Neptune at the very last degree of Pisces, the very final degree, the very final few weeks, really, with Neptune here in Pisces. And then on the 21st, later in the weekend, after we move through all of this, just after we move through all of this, the sun is going to move into Capricorn, and that sets off the winter solstice. When the sun moves into Capricorn, that's our solstice. So let's talk about this whole thing and what it means. Okay, let me just make sure I have everything down the way I wanted to. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting having these together. We have Sagittarius at the very end of, we have the new moons happening at the very end of the zodiac sign seasons right now. So we're pretty much complete with Sagittarius season as we have this new moon. And, you know, it's always interesting to blend the energies of adjacent signs together. And I think having a new moon and then a solstice does this sort of a little extra. And I think that having the Sagittarius new moon right before this sort of threshold of the solstice is going to help us bring the positivity and the optimism of Sag with us as we do sort of move into this next cycle. I think it's very interesting the way that this lunation is lining up with the holiday time and sort of year end. You know, when we look at a lunation, we think of it as being most potent, most active for 2 weeks. And I know the new moon is so dark, but we still call it a lunation. So until we get to our next lunation, we're under the influence of this one, right? And so that new moon is today, Friday, when I'm recording this, Friday the 19th of December, and it will be most active for 2 weeks, which is really right until we get to, you know, January 3rd or so, that next weekend, sort of on the other side of the holiday season. So there's something about the flavor of this that says a lot about that holiday time period that we're sort of in this energy. It just lines up really, it happens to line up really nicely this year. these signs are so different back to back. Signs that are next to each other are really quite different. And Sagittarius always strikes me as um, sort of sandwiched between two very serious signs. You know, Scorpio season is quite serious, and Capricorn season is too. But Sagittarius sort of brings a lightness and a brightness and a positivity and an optimism and a joyfulness and a willingness to expand that I think is very helpful, sort of in between all of it. So I want to sort of talk about this all together a little bit too, but also kind of take it one at a time. It's a little bit confusing how to break this down effectively, but I think I'm going to start with the Sagittarius new moon because that does deserve its own moment. And then we'll talk about this Neptune energy and blending that in as we sort of move into the solstice, and talking about them together, we'll be able to understand what they mean separately as well. I also did cover some of this in my horoscopes, which are best viewed for your rising sign, the December-January horoscopes. I did them together this month because I'm doing these little short 3 key transit previews for each sign for 2026. Those are up as well. They are in different playlists than usual, so check out my channel. And make sure that you've seen your videos for 2026. I'm still working on those 3 key transit videos. You know how it goes. I roll them all out so slowly. Appreciate the patience of you later signs. Okay, so Sagittarius new moon. Optimism is the first thing that comes to mind. Um, it's a sincere optimism about the future, really being able to see the highest potential. You know, people who have sun in Sagittarius or moon in Sagittarius or Sag rising are so encouraging of others. And part of the reason why they're so encouraging of others and such a good support is that um, they do see the highest potential. They can see a friend who has been going through a lot and say, you're going to be okay. I can see how all of this, you're going to learn from this. I can see that you have this gift and this gift and this gift, and you are going to be okay. They're a great person to talk to if you're having a little bit of a hard time. You know, and this is not true 100% of the time. 100% of Sagittarius energies, of course, that would be a little bit difficult as it was. There can be, if it was, there can be other factors as well. But as a general rule, we're working with sort of a genuine positivity and sort of uplifting encouragement at this time. And it's also worth talking about the fact that whenever we have a new moon, we're sort of planting seeds in that part of the chart. A really cool way to work with astrology is to follow the new moons and the full moons around the chart. And I think the new moons might be the most important. You know, to think about the part of your chart that is ruled by Sagittarius. Check out your horoscope for my rising sign, by rising sign, if you haven't already. And that can show you if you don't know. And you think about okay, where am I now? This is a moment where you take some time for yourself, first of all, with the new moon, because it's a quiet time, right? It's the sky is dark. It's a time to go within for answers rather than look out into the world. The world isn't being illuminated. We are being illuminated. The sort of inner light, you know, going within to try to seek answers, being quiet, being still, getting some rest. Through rest and rejuvenation, those ideas can come to the surface. Through taking care of yourself, you're able to find those different solutions. So rest is not, as we have been too conditioned to believe, a break from something productive. There's something very, very productive and important and essential about rest, that without it, it's sort of the gate, actually. You know, without opening that gate properly and being properly rested, it can actually be very difficult to be productive or find solutions at all. So there's something about new moon energy always, wherever it is, that's a great time to take a little time, even if it's just a long drive, even if it's just a half an hour bath or a small amount of time or more to be a little bit quiet, get a little rest, maybe go within a bit and think about the Sagittarius ruled part of your chart and what new seeds you want to plant here. What I love about, what you want to grow in the 6 months ahead, in the year ahead. What I love about Sagittarius energy with that is that it is so positive. And so this is a great energy to bring to that seed planting process, in my opinion. Oh, thank you so much for the supers. I see the rubies. Thank you so much. Oh, I appreciate that. Who sent those? Oh, Bebo, of course. Bebo, good morning. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for the flower and for the rubies. Um, Please feel free to leave any questions in the chat and I will read it at the end. We'll do some Q&A at the end. I'm going to sort of focus on the astrology here for the most part. Sometimes I do get distracted by those supers. They're so great. I appreciate that. But then uh, I'll check in with the chat at the end and I'll answer any questions that you have. So yeah, it's a great time to plant the seeds in the Sagittarius part of the chart and you're feeling optimistic and sort of emotionally strong. We're really still just coming off of those grand water trines that we were working with so much in November and early December. They were occurring from like mid-October through early December. So that process has sort of given us an emotional strength. So this is an amazing time to dream big and to plant seeds because we're feeling good, right? You don't want to do that when you're not feeling good. Also, maybe that encouragement that is associated with Sagittarius, the way it can see the highest potential and be that person for others, can we be that person for ourselves? And it's not about, I think it's so interesting to think about spiritual bypassing, right? When sometimes people can lean too much on stuff like positivity and think, I'm just going to think positive and then it's going to all happen to me. And that's not the case, right? We have to do more than think positively. What we do is what's most important in life. But again, it's almost like another gate. I don't know if we can really go and achieve our highest potential and make our dreams happen if we're not feeling hopeful, a little hopeful about the world and a little okay ourselves. Just like we need rest, we need to somehow be able to go, I'm okay, I'm going to be okay, I can do it. you know so anyway, maybe we can be that person for ourselves. Maybe we can be a little encouraging, not in a spiritually bypassing way, but in a genuine, just being good to ourselves, understanding that it's important to um, do what we need to do to cultivate and lean into that right attitude in order to get the most out of life and our experience and be there for the people around us as best as we can and all of that. There can be sometimes with Sagittarius something to look out for. Sometimes we can underestimate challenges or potential difficulties or pitfalls with an energy like this because it is so optimistic. And sometimes Sagittarius can fail to see shortcomings within themselves. They can have a hard time taking stock of what they could improve. Because of this optimism and this positivity, it's like, everything's okay. It's probably all going to go okay. I'm probably good enough. And so we don't want to do that because it is important to have our eyes open. And part of doing everything that we can is doing what we need to do to improve ourselves and also looking out for potential pitfalls in the future that are and not being foolish about it. Makes me think of the Fool card, even though that's more commonly associated with Aries for good reason. That idea of sort of playing the flute and dancing and skipping and not noticing that you're about to dance and skip right off a cliff, right? So it's not that dramatic with something like this, but just to say there's the tendency to sort of underestimate our own shortcomings and potential challenges or pitfalls in the future. I guess there's something about this whole energy that it's just, it's very expansive. When I start to put it together with Neptune here a little bit and with the winter solstice, there's like a big picture perspective thing going on because Sagittarius is related to Jupiter. And like one funny fact that I always enjoy about if someone has a strong Sagittarius signature in their chart is that they really love rooms with high ceilings. Such a funny, strange fact. But if you say that to someone with a lot of Sag, they'll go, "Oh, I do. We used to have this room here, and I loved it." And or like everyone can be a little bit more creative when we're not in a little enclosed space. We all feel good and like the feeling of open space above us. But Sag does a little bit more. And it's that love of freedom. It's that desire to expand. And it always makes me think about, well, I guess I'm thinking right now about how this time has that quality. We can sort of see we're at a bigger picture moment. We can sort of picture what's going on from a little bit of a bird's eye view. We can sort of see the big picture a little bit more easily now with all of these different pieces coming together. So Neptune here, the Neptune square, this is adding sort of a little bit of a fogginess, a blurriness. It could feel like lack of motivation, slowness, a dreaminess to the mix, which is very interesting. It almost feels a little bit like a fade in and a fade out, especially the way that it's right. Actually, the perfection of it is right in between the new moon and the solstice. Like it's sort of got that, like the new moon's going to fade in and the solstice is, or the new moon's going to fade out and the solstice is going to fade in. And the Neptune square is the darkness in the middle. It's that fogginess. So a fogginess might come over us in some ways this weekend. It might be something that we're working with throughout the weekend or on different times. That could be being, especially, there's so many different ways Neptune can play out all the time. I've been working on this recording with Corinne, and that's one of the hardest things about it is there's just so many different ways that Neptune can play out. But yeah, that should be out before the end of the year. A special edition of a video for my channel about the Sun Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries. It's the biggest transit of 2026, one of the biggest transit of the decade. So be on the lookout for that. It should come out before the end of the year. So one of the hardest things about understanding that signature is that it involves Neptune, and I kind of feel that way about trying to explain Neptune anytime I talk about it because there's so many different potentials of it. It can be confusion. It can be just being tired. This weekend, it could be not really feeling motivated. Maybe it could be feeling confused. It can also be like being caught up in fantasy that almost is feeling real, right? Like it's a very sort of divine love signature that you can connect with people in a very it's very spiritual potentially. And you can connect with others from that space. It can be absolutely lovely. But there's some sort of fog in some way that gathers, whether it's something that we feel physically or intellectually or emotionally. And then it sort of lifts as quickly as it comes in, because when we get to that Capricorn solstice, Capricorn energy is so clear. It's so serious and knows how to set boundaries and knows how to set limits and knows how to get the job done and knows how to keep going and all of these different things all at once. So it definitely clears up that Neptune square when the sun moves into Capricorn. We have more contemplative energy, but we've moved through, we're still carrying with us that optimism of the Sagittarius energy. We're a little blurry from the Neptune square, which, leftovers, which left us a little open to learning new things, to understanding things a little bit differently. And then when we get into this Capricorn season, we have that solid Capricorn energy to help us sort of put it into practice. There's a renewal to the Capricorn new moon that's very real. It almost makes me think about like putting the duvet out in the cold, hanging a duvet on a clothesline in the middle of winter, and the refresh that gives, but overnight or something. And then you bring it in and it's like all purified and better and clean and cold, and it's great. And that is kind of the vibe of a Capricorn solstice, especially after the heaviness of a Sagittarius new moon and a Neptune square. There's this moment of renewal for sure. And then Capricorn is going to help us take what we've learned and build in some structure, something sort of sustainable. I also do want to mention and add to this, though, this Jupiter Chiron square, which I mentioned earlier. And I didn't talk about this in the reports because, there really is enough here to talk about, isn't there? Maybe I should make it red since it's a square. There's so much to talk about that I didn't know if there was the space for it in those reports. That's part of why we have these meetings, because there's only so much I can cover in the horoscopes. Okay, so this Jupiter Chiron square is also in play throughout the weekend. I feel like it's old emotional material could surface, big feelings could surface in one way or another, and that's not surprising with everything else that we're talking about. And Sagittarius also wants us to make meaning from things. There's a philosophical quality, a mind quality to Sagittarius, that expansion, that seeing the big picture. There's something coming to the surface, I think, this Jupiter Chiron square. And it might just be within us, right? I don't think that this is necessarily some big deal, something happening in the world, but something that you're working on, something very personal, something that you're thinking about. And part of you really wants to make meaning from what's surfacing. And I think whatever healing we do here, we're going to carry it into the next cycle, because that renewal, that refresh of the Capricorn solstice is like, okay, get it, and it's almost like the healing is a part of the refresh. We now I'm thinking about like an ice bath or something, going into one of those cold lakes in Sweden or something during a cold, dark winter night moment, and just that total refresh of all of that. And it's almost like we did that a night that we had just moved through something a little bit powerful. And so the cleanse, like the healing work, becomes a part of the cleanse feeling a little bit. But yeah, there's a tenderness to the Jupiter Chiron square that's worth mentioning here, added to the mix of the weekend, an honesty, a raw honesty. And again, might just be with self, but there's some sort of vulnerability that we're allowing for, that is a part of this signature, I think. And we have this emotional courage and this discernment, partially because of what was signified by those grand water trines that we were moving throughout the late fall and early winter, right? We have this emotional courage, this discernment, and that sort of combined with vulnerability in terms of not taking on more than we can handle, not talking about it with the wrong people, but maybe talking about it with the right people. taking good care of ourselves, getting the rest that the new moon and the solstice suggest would be good for us. Just that time to go within, to be a little honest, a little real, but with the right people. Maybe allow that Neptune square to make us a little dreamy or blurry or unmotivated, tired, whatever it is for a minute. You know, the new ideas might be able to come in from that space. And I think we're working with something a little bit special this weekend. I do. Um, I think that the Jupiter Chiron square is kind of a background note. Um, but I think it's worth mentioning. All right, I think that's about all I have. I think I'm going to take a look at the chat here. I hope that you're all doing well. I would love to hear how you're doing and if this is relating. Oh wow, new moon is in your 6th house and today is your last day of work. That is really perfect timing. That's nice timing. Like I said, it's so interesting with the timing of this with the vacation, with the 2-week vacation for some people. 2-week vacation from school in a lot of cases, just the way it's falling. I don't know, the schools that I know of have 2 weeks, but that can't be true everywhere. But it is weird the way this holiday is falling. It's in some cases providing a bit of a vacation. I know some of the work that I do is closed, others open. It's all a little bit wild, but there is that holiday vibe feel from this weekend until that one right after New Year's. And it's funny how this new moon sort of separates that time period from the rest, I think. This is tropical. This is the tropical zodiac. Yes, and thank you. You said you saw it says tropical. It's true. Yes, you keep saying you need more sleep. I think this time of year lends itself to a little bit more sleep, Bebo, and anyone else who's feeling that way, just with so much darkness, right? It's just a cold time and it's a little extra dark and we're busy. So very true on high ceilings. If you have Sagittarius signature, that's interesting. It's funny, those little sort of funny notes that the different signs relate to. You know, Sagittarius loving high ceilings is one of my favorite ones. Virgo loving to run errands and check things off of a list is one of my favorite ones. I think that's so funny. It's like if Virgo is having a hard day, someone with a strong Virgo signature, what they really ought to do is like make a list of things to accomplish and then go out into the world and run a bunch of errands. And I just think that's adorable. Or clean. They would also like to maybe clean the house up a little bit. Pisces wants to sleep or escape in some kind of way. One thing I always say to Gemini is that if there's a strong Gemini signature, I say that there's a part of that signature where you like to have a little bit of a secret, even from your closest people, like even from your spouse, even if it's nothing significant, you know, it's that I don't know. I don't want to give an example, but even it's like they just like that feeling of like having a little thing that's a secret that no one knows about, and they will often shake their head and say, "Yeah, it's true. I just like to have something for myself." What other funny things are they? Taurus has expensive taste. We know these things. Okay, let me keep reading through the chat. I don't know if any of that was interesting at all. Oh, it's -6 there with the wind chill, icy snow. Oh, but then 50, it was 50 yesterday. Yeah, today it's raining and it's warmer here. It's going to be 50 today, but it's been quite cold. It's been a little warmer the last couple days. We did have a little bit of snow a few days ago, but it's melted now. Yeah. Well, I see someone saying how leaving my school district and not having something secured, relying on universe for a new opportunity. I think that there are a lot of indications that there is a lot of change and shifting afoot right now, astrologically. I also think definitely do everything you can on your end, right? Astrology, I'm always saying, I'm sure everyone is so tired of me saying it, but astrology doesn't make stuff happen, right? This is not about externalizing our power and thinking that things happen to us. We hold the power. We have to make things happen in our life, and that's the most powerful and important thing you can do is do everything you can on your side and stay positive and stuff, like I said. And about a quarter of the people just left because they know I always say that and they're tired of hearing me say it. But I understand. I just think it's an important disclaimer because astrology is so interesting. It can really be easy to sort of get a little carried away with it. I've certainly done it myself, you know? And so I really understand. Oh, happy birthday. Happy birthday on the solstice. Happy solar return. Solar returns are a great time. The sun is returned to the same place it was when you were born, having a birthday. And it's a great time. The reason that we make a wish on our birthdays is very astrologically sound. It is a great time to think about what you want for the year ahead. You know, astrologically, that lines up. So do that on your birthday. I mean, that's nice right now anyway. Okay, I think that that's it from the chat. I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. I will be back on Tuesday. I'm sort of breaking it up a little bit differently this week with the holiday. So I'll be back on Tuesday to talk about next week. Okay, hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for being here.